short answer is that, like most people, I started focusing on animation, like character animation and stuff. And eventually, as you're just comparing yourself to your classmates and realizing where you excel and where you don't, you just kind of drift over into the more technical side of it. But the long story of how I got into it is that pretty early on, even in high school, I found myself experimenting with the Maya 7 Personal Learning Edition with the giant watermark across the screen when you render and everything. And I think the reason I got into that was because I guess the marketing departments at a lot of the studios did a really good job with all their behind the scenes videos, like showing how they make Gollum, or showing that when you go to Pixar, animators just ride around on scooters all day. So it was like a combination of seeing those pieces and thinking, oh, that looks like a cool atmosphere to work in. And also at the time I was into like doing a lot of art, like just, general high school art classes with painting and drawing, and also doing theater. And it's like, and technology, like building computers and stuff, and animations, or, related industries. It's kind of the center point of all those interests. So it kind of just happened at some point. I was like, I guess I'm going into animation. I don't remember the specifics. And then I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design for animation. And I thought I was going to be a character animator, because you're going into animation. That's what it's called. And then I focused on character animation for the first couple of years and started out really strong. But at some point, I realized I wasn't really getting any better, and my friends were. Mm-hmm. And it didn't cause me to like panic or anything. And it wasn't even until my senior year where I started to pivot. And the way it happened was, I believe the first part was, are you familiar with the Malcolm rig from Anim School?
Yes.
So the Malcolm rig came out, and at the time there were only a few rigs out, and Malcolm was by far the most flexible out of all of them. We were like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then I don't remember why, but I think it might have been just for an assignment I was working on with Malcolm. I decided to make a female mod for him, and I barely knew how to rig, so I just threw this like sloppy blonde ponytail geometry on the back and did a full body blend shape with just some more curves basically to the body. And my classmates were like, oh, can I use that? Can I use that? And it said on the Malcolm site, if you make any mods to him, feel free to send them over to here. Maybe we'll put them up on the website. So I ended up doing that, and Dave Gallagher at Anim School did end up putting it up there, and I got a surprising amount of notoriety for that. I mean, I don't think I had like, I may have even had a link to it on my website. I don't remember, but at least the people I knew were like, this is super cool. And then at some point they were like, you should just put this rig from your senior film, Bonnie, online too. I don't remember who said that or how I decided to do that. But basically I had this rig that I made, and I can share the screen. Actually, I have her open here somewhere.
It's funny because when I started rigging, the first proper training, I mean, it's common that I had to learn rigging was in Softimage 3D, and was with the VHS from David Gallagher back in 2000, I think, was there. I mean,
I don't think I've seen that, but with my school definitely had one of those, a library full of DVDs.
Yeah, I think David Gallagher probably was one of the first, probably, yeah, with VHS, yeah, probably was the first like real like tutorial on like rigging I ever know.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. I met him at CTN a couple times.
I should contact him to bring it to the podcast also. It will be really nice to talk with him.
That would be a good one.
And tell him that.
Can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
So this is Bonnie. I was working on my senior film. Everyone does a senior film at SCAD. And I had taken like one rigging class, or one or two, I'm not sure, but I used, I don't even know who made this, but AB Auto Rig was one of the go-to auto rig systems at the time. And I used that to make her body. I'm assuming whoever we're talking about's name is initialed AB. Apologies to them. We should have looked that up. But so I used that to rig her body, and then for her face, you can tell how terrible I was at rigging because I didn't even color the controls. But so her face is basically 100% blend shapes, just like out in, up, down. I don't even think there are any correctives here.
I mean, this is your first rig?
Yes, and so the face.
It's awesome,
face
man.
was... Thanks.
I mean,
So
I'm not gonna show you ever my first rig. Probably I don't have it. But...
Let's look in the outliner and just see what awful stuff is in here. Wow, it also. Oh, you know what? I wonder if there's some broken namespace or something going on, or did I really name it in all caps Bonnie Annam face mouth before everything? That would be kind of ridiculous. It's possible. It was a very long time ago. But yeah, so I ended up putting this rig online, and because at the time it kind of jump started my whole career. And I remember looking at the download count sometime in the first year, and it was at like 30,000 or something.
Wow, that's amazing. Which year was that, by the way? Just to put some antecedents to the people, like
this was probably 2013.
2013, yeah.
Yeah, and it was really, really lucky. It was right place, right time kind of thing, because I think I already said at the time there were only a couple rigs out there. There was like Norman, there was Malcolm, there was Moom, and then Malcolm had just come out. Or wait, I said Malcolm, I meant Morpheus, but then Malcolm came out too. So there were, less than 10 kind of go-to rigs out there, maybe even less than 5. And this was the first one that was like, a full female character with face and everything. So it ended up giving me a lot of notoriety right off the bat. And I was also able to use this in my demo reel to like get my first job, which was a brief 2-month thing at Real Effects. And it kind of just kicked everything off from there. And I met with Disney recruiters while I was at SCAD, because they have the students talk to people and stuff. And that led to me getting the Disney Apprenticeship, which was a 1-year thing after the Real Effects gig. And it was after the Disney gig for 1 year where I worked on Feast, which was an animated short, and Big Hero 6, the film, where I got let go after the year apprentice program. So I made it through the whole thing, but at the end, they decide who they have room for and all that kind of stuff. Didn't make the cut. Of course, I was upset about that at the time, but I ended up using the time off after that, before I found another job, to make my first paid rig, which was, I have her open here somewhere, Kayla 1 on the left here. I'm currently working on Kayla 2. She'll be out in the next couple of months, hopefully. But the video series, which before we recorded, you were telling me you even purchased at some point.
Yes.
The facial rig tutorial series. Good. Thank you. It's very old. I'm embarrassed. I need to get out a 2.0 sometime this year.
There's I always if there is tutorials from anybody, like even unless for me, I always learn something new. I always learn something that has value, and even if the time passed, there's the bread and butter. It's always the same, and it's
right. Thank you.
I think it's great.
So the facial rig tutorial was all based on Kayla. So I made Kayla and that tutorial series within a few months of leaving Disney, and that's when I founded JoshSobelRigs.com, which was my company before I transitioned into Frigging Awesome Studios, which we'll get to later. And I was kind of seeing, what the landscape is, if I could like make a living off this and stuff. So I ended up, taking some of the skills I learned at Disney and on the side and everything, and putting it into what is still very much a blend shape driven character, but just way far above what I was able to do with Bonnie. But it's not the most practical face rig from a rigger perspective, as far as like there's a lot of fine tuning of sculpting going into this, because there's no joints involved here. Like I just made this shape from scratch, and I think I did use some joints to like roughly get it into place, but I'm still happy with how this looks these days. It's just too much of a hassle to like replicate, so I don't really use these methods anymore. But Kayla is still my best-selling rig on my store, like even more than ones that are far more up to date. And that was another right place, right time thing, because there weren't any children rigs out at the time. So that was a nice step forwards. I made a decent amount of income from releasing Kayla and that tutorial series. But what was his name? But it wasn't enough to like live on. Like, you know, it was nice side income. So I ended up doing a Blue Sky temp gig after that, and kind of jumped around. Ended up at PsyOp, made some rigs in between here and there, and they all kind of used the same rough rigging setup as Kayla, which was completely from scratch. Like there's no auto rig involved here, so there were, you know, there's a lot of difference between my rigs over the years, which is kind of my biggest frustration with my library right now, is that there's not a lot of uniformity between the rigs, which makes it very hard to go back and like update them, because they're all different. You can't just like update some code and rerun the build. So that's what I'm kind of working on going forwards, is having more of a unified rigging pipeline, and, you know, taking a lot of what I've learned recently about like parallel evaluation and performance, because like Kayla was a real-time rig, but Bonnie 2, which I released a few years later. Do I have her open? I don't think I do. But Bonnie 2 is the rig that I like the most up-to-date tech that, and I guess I'll just open her up actually.
But I think one of the points that people can get from here is like sharing. It's a really good for your career. I mean, you started like sharing stuff from the beginning, like with Bonnie, and you landed like in like this. I think it's the first the real effects, and then you land the internship and Disney. That's I mean, that's only a few spots. And probably you get it because the people know you, because the rig you shared that was public available, and
right.
And that's a huge value there. I see some people that is very well, they do the demo reel, or they are very protective with his secret sauce, that I don't think there is such a thing.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And yeah, even
industry trade secrets and stuff.
Yeah. I remember like some I'm gonna say names, but there is a few rigs that it was like share just if you are nice, like something. And then I just out of curiosity, I just opened the rig, and it was all like how you say, I don't know how they even, probably it's a lot of work just to make huge cryptic everything with all the names and mix and match. So basically you cannot reverse engineer anything there. You cannot just open the rig and learn something from there. It was like a huge
it's a
mess
hassle
to protect his know-how. And I was
so my rigs are all my products are 100% on the honor system, and I've just never had a problem with it. Like obviously anybody can download them and just give them to their friends illegally, but I mean I'm sure that happens, but it's just not enough to matter.
Yeah, well I meant is not that part that should be not I mean, if it's like some like a commercial product or something, you should respect the license. I'm just talking about curious, like if you do like, oh, the eyebrow, and I just open the rig and I'm curious how you solve this or the other way, or how you do different, even not to copy, just to pure curiosity. And it was like a cluster mess of things that you can, okay, good. But yeah, so this is the new one. Yeah.
So this is Bonnie 2. That's the last rig I published before I went to DreamWorks. So probably about 3 years ago now. And very different type of facial setup when compared to Kayla. A lot easier to set up on a rigger end, and a lot more flexible as far as like way more controls and stuff. Like the mouth all kind of works as one system and stuff. But there are some serious performance issues with Bonnie 2, because with some of the skills I picked up over the years, it's like, well, animators want like, you know, one control per span for the eyes and the mouth.
Oh, really?
And also to like have all these little controls here follow along exactly where you predict them to follow along. And so I ended up using a lot of follicles for this. So basically there's a follicle pinning each of these controls to the face. And Charles Wardlaw, who you had on the podcast a few weeks ago, he's currently making a rigging dojo optimizing rigs for parallel evaluation in Maya course. And I've been learning a lot from him. He's using Bonnie 2 as the example in that series. So
definitely that's one I want to grab when it's released. It's not yet released, huh? Correct?
No, not yet. He's still working on it, but it's going to be really, really essential, because I have had no clue what goes into knowing how to make a rig speedy. I was basically just like, I guess rigs are slow. Like when I went to my first couple studios, I was blown away that all of these rigs were running at like 3 frames a second, basically. Oh. And it was over the next couple of years that people started to figure out how to optimize for parallel. And a lot of the big studios would develop their own systems for like having invisible Mayas in the background, caching the frames and all that kind of stuff. But now we're kind of at a point, especially with Maya 2020, where everything's optimized enough that if you know what to avoid and how to set up your rigs, you can get a real-time rig through parallel evaluation pretty easily. Yeah. But if you Google some of the stuff online, there's like nothing. And so this tutorial that Charles is making, I think is going to be really useful. Yeah. But the really quick example of just how terrible this rig is for performance is that, and I didn't even know about this button until Charles told me about it, but under general editors, there's the Evaluation Toolkit.
Yes.
And if you look at the cycles here, I think I have to actually get some keys to
this one and the profiler. It's your best friend.
Yes, very essential, but there's not much information on how to use them. So I just keep that the opposite, but that's okay. So if you look here, I don't know if this number is the amount of cycles or milliseconds or what, but 700 is insanely high. And it's all coming from these follicles.
Yes.
Yeah. So she isn't that high res, but basically on my new setup, I'm trying to keep everything under like 20. So 700 is pretty ridiculous. And it's all because of these follicles. So there's all these, it's not so much just like, don't use follicles, don't use wraps because they're slow. It's like learning how Maya under the hood calculates this stuff so that you can avoid this stuff. And I'm excited for him to finish the series. It's been very useful learning that stuff.
Yeah, there is I always like feel like there is so much to learn, and when you think you okay, my rig is nice, then you realize, oh, but it's not like that fast, or it can be better, or when you finish, you have learned enough stuff that you feel, okay, I want to restart again. So that's something that always happens. Oh, I think your camera went completely green. Do you have a filter?
What?
Maybe can you share again and maybe or stop the camera and just gonna be okay. Now it's back to normal.
Am I green again?
No, you're normal human again. Okay. Sorry. So yeah, I lost a little bit the train of thought, but yeah, like this kind of like process where you do something, you satisfy, then realize, oh, you learn new stuff, and always this keep going and going.
Yeah, and when your stuff's all online for people to buy and use, there's no taking it back. You can't hide.
Yeah.
You'll just forever be ashamed of your old stuff, and I guess that's good because it'll drive you to make new stuff.
It's an internet fate.
Yeah.
You put it there for your maybe a few minutes of satisfaction, and then, oh no, why I did that. Yeah.
But because of that, the plan this year is to release Kayla 2, who's in the works. I haven't done any face stuff on here, so it's not very fun to look at, but I've basically been building this rigging system for myself from scratch to be able to just quickly churn out my rigs going forwards. And it is a data-centric pipeline. I know you're kind of the data-centric guy with gear and stuff.
I'm a big proponent of the system. Unless someone comes and split me one better, then I will reach it.
The ability to rebuild in any version of Maya and to just change some code and then rebuild the whole rig in a fresh scene without worrying about what history is getting left over from all the sloppy rigging and stuff. It's very useful. Yeah,
there is a lot of advantages. I think we had this conversation back in with Rafael Frappan in the Cult of Rig when we talked with Raf and Zobin also about the rigging as a software. And one of the concepts that I like to think it's like the rig. You compile your rig. It's not like the asset that you open and change. It's more like every time you build, you create like a new compilation. No? That's
rigging is too detailed these days to just start making something in a linear fashion. You got to be able to kind of go back and adjust stuff. And for those that I'm sure don't know what on earth we're talking about right now, we just mean Database pipeline means you hit, basically I have an export data button and it exports all the deformer weights and the control shapes. So anytime you just open up a scene that just says geometry and joints, you can just rebuild the whole thing and it'll bring all of your data back in, and it's independent of Maya versions as long as the tool works. And it's that's how it's been at pretty much every studio I've been at, both for cloth rigs and for character rigs.
Yeah, it's not like something I mean, obviously I was pushing that data-centric thing, that but it's not something I made out of I mean, there was people before me and studios many years that was doing that. I think it was not like out there, like on the wild, let's say. If you search a few years ago, there is no like any conversation going on that in any public space in internet, or you know, like people working on these studios, or they have this kind of rebuilding, serialization and rebuilding systems, but there was no like any word of side there. It was like, oh, this is just for big pipelines and things like that. I don't agree that. I think it's everybody with a healthy goal in mind, like human health, should use this kind of
and it's very important for any, I think it's very important for any rigger who plans to do any freelance work in their life, as far as like using their own version of Maya instead of remoting into somebody's studio or going to a studio. I think it's very important to either induct or induct, like, if that's the word, you need rigging tools to work with. You can't, like, when I graduated school, I thought it would be fine to not know how to script or to just build rigs from scratch every time. Like, there's too much room for error. You're gonna have to charge for way more hours than someone else who already has that stuff, or take a huge pay cut or work for free.
And it's not only that. I think the obviously the complexity. I mean, the rigging, if you think like rigs like 10-15 years ago, that what you need to do now as something like a production rig, I'm not talking about like big feature films, like just a regular, maybe middle budget like TV series or commercials, like ad, things like that, that is more like fast pace. Normally was not the absolute best rigging you can do, because there was a big time constraints with these kind of projects. It's maybe in weeks or even 1 week sometimes projects. So that has been changed a lot. I mean, now if you take any commercial, and you've been also working on commercial in PsyOp, the quality that you have on these rigs, on the animation, like in top of my mind, like be still like Studio AK, PsyOp, Bug in the States, Ncloth. I mean, there's a lot of Milford in Europe, or I mean, in London there's a huge amount of also like studios that they put a lot of quality on these little pieces that is very short period of production, and I think it's the only way that you can get that nowadays. It's like to having systems in place that, I don't know.
It's like if you build a rig from scratch 5 times, like you could have built a full decent auto rig system for yourself in that time, and then it's just one click from there on.
And
there you could always just buy a license to M-Gear, or I mean I think M-Gear is free, right?
No, you cannot buy it. It's free.
But you could, like, I was thinking like you could buy Advanced Skeleton, or just use one of the free ones, like M-Gear, one of the other ones that's already done. I haven't personally looked into that stuff too much, partially because I feel like if I'm selling rigs online, I just feel better if I know that I'm selling my own stuff.
Totally fair. I mean, I think every system has its own like right like, let's say, users, or the right project to use. Or obviously everybody that does rigging systems try to make his system as much as like broad use as possible, I guess. Like you can use it for many things. But depending of what your needs are, obviously it's better. In your case, I mean, if you're doing also these tutorials and training, I think it's much better if you do your own system, because obviously
it's better for my identity.
Yeah, exactly. And depends. I mean, what's your goal? I mean, sometimes
Hmm.
it's I want just I'm an animator. I want just to put a rig here. So
Hmm.
maybe any
Yeah,
rigging
my
system, it's
one
good.
very limiting goal of mine over the years has been that my biggest market is students,
Hmm.
and students never have access to install plugins and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I've always heard good things about MGear, but my like the totality of my experience with rigging outside of a completed studio pipeline
Hmm.
is with the goal of never having any plugins whatsoever.
Yeah, that's a
So I end up having
conversation.
to cut out a
Yeah.
lot of pose drivers and MGear and all these other things.
Yeah. Yeah, this is something that's I'm oh, who I was talking that, yeah, with a friend. Yeah, they like there is always this, oh no, you cannot use custom, you should use custom. My opinion is that it's the most important when you go to in production. It's quality, and it's quality in terms of the appealing, deformation, controls, things like that, but also in like what we're saying, like speed and functionality, so you need to and there is a balance between having custom solvers and custom stuff that you can, made like a monolithic kind of node that does a lot of functionality in really really fast way, like in C++, compile things. Obviously that have a trade-off. You need the plugin, but it depends. For me, I personally prefer not to use all my vanilla nodes, because I know there's a trade-off in other areas. But it's true that sometimes some clients, they ask it to use only vanilla nodes, and there is not official components on MGear that use vanilla nodes. There is some in a secure Git. It's called Gish, the one that you put the snippets there. That there are full vanilla Maya nodes, but I'm not supporting that. But maybe in the future. But as you say, like students, that's a big issue, because probably they learning. So plugins, can put plugins here?
I mean, I shouldn't say this, but I still get a lot of emails from my customers asking me why textures aren't showing up because they haven't set their Maya project. So I do have to make
Yeah,
sure my rigs aren't that technical from an end
yeah,
user point
but
of
no shame on
view.
that. I mean, if the people is learning, you learning. I mean, that's the trade-off. You need to ask questions, and you need to
Mm-hmm.
to make mistakes and learn. I mean, it's indeed is the best way to learn. If it always works, it's you're not gonna learn it. Fails once, you learn how to do that, and it's on your toolbox for next time. Say,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And sorry, I think we went in a little tangent here. So just to recap, so you're working on this rigging system, and you're using I mean, you doing the uh sorry, I forgot the little girl second version of your rig.
Yeah,
That's
Kayla 2.
the Kayla, yeah, sorry. So, and yeah, that's I mean, I know we talk sometimes on chats, and that, or I follow you and in your Discord community also, that we will talk a little later. But so you've been investing a lot of time on this. I think it's you put in a lot of work on having this, like I would say, like very like huge leap on improvement and everything from the previous stuff. No, you did, like performance and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, I go back and forth on whether all of this is worth it because I've been working on this new system for years now. Mostly just recently because like it was while I was employed at other studios when I would just chip away in my free time working on my own stuff at home. But uh, the idea is that once like Halo 2 is the test bed for my new tools, but my new tools will in theory allow me to churn out a bunch of rigs and be able to just go back to any of them after I rewrite like how the arm rig works and just hit rebuild and just pipe it all back through all the characters at once. So once this is done, it's kind of the bedrock of me being able to make a bunch of rigs going forwards. Fingers crossed there's still a market because it's very full these days. But
Yeah.
yeah, Kayla 2 is kind of just the test bed to get all that working. which is why she's
Yeah.
taking so long to be done.
Yeah, I always think like yeah, you say when you did Bonnie and Kayla, and then nowadays it's like few studios or uh freelancers that they're creating a lot of like rigs nowadays online, like really good ones. I'm really impressed. I cannot buy all the rigs, but I try to buy from time to time some of the rigs because they are really good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of value there. Um, the so let's do a little change. Maybe can 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 we talk a little bit of your new adventure? I will say like with so it's Friggin Studios. I call F Riggin. I didn't know the
It's
right pronunciation was Friggin.
frigging awesome studios, but the R is capitalized, so it's like a play on words, emphasis on the
Uh,
rigging.
so I'm saying correctly F Riggin. So fantastic
That's
Riggin.
fine.
That's cool. And how do you? I mean, you've been working in big studios for some time, and then you feel like your heart is going in this path of independent.
Well,
How come out this thing?
it's always, I mean, making rigs and products online has always been the backbone of my career. I mean, as we talked about before, it started in college, and then kind of jump started me, gave me some momentum going forwards. And I always tinkered away at it between studio gigs, but never really got to go all in on it. And I always wondered, like, am I going to regret it if I don't give it like a full throttle effort at some point? And I put that off for a long time because I really specifically liked working at DreamWorks. It's a really nice campus, great people,
Mhm.
just great job stability, and everyone's kind of happy there. And once COVID happened, I kind of lost most of the stuff that I liked about it because you're at home, you're working without people next to
Uh,
you, and it's almost like every job starts to feel the same once you're working from home.
mhm.
And so that made it easier for me to say, you know what, this is kind of the time to take the risk and see what it's like, because there's way less to lose right now. Who knows, maybe I'll get super FOMO of everybody going back to the studios in a couple of months.
I
But
hope.
for now, ideally. But for now, I'm just kind of doing the work from home thing and going all in on it, and seeing just kind of seeing how it goes. It's a fairly low risk business venture. I mean, it's basically just a rebrand. Like, nothing's really changed aside from logos and names, and it's an LLC now instead of a sole proprietorship, which, I mean, I pay people to handle that stuff. So I do not know much about the business logistics there, to be honest. But that's when it's just more official now, but it's
Yeah.
still the same products. I'm just basically making a public statement of I'm putting more effort into this now, and
Mm.
there's stuff
Can
coming.
you plug the website? So I will add the link later, but if you want to plug the website, we can show it to the
Yeah.
people and so on.
Uh,
And
somehow friggingawesome.com existed, so that's the address. You could also go to friggingawesomestudios.com, and it'll just redirect there. But yeah, friggingawesome.com. Or did you want me to like bring it up?
yeah, if you want, I mean,
Oh, sure.
I mean, just because you're talking about that, so maybe the people can have a visual on that, so it's a bit easier to make an idea if somebody doesn't know you yet. I doubt, but just in case. Um, and so basically, you want to focus on like your products, like and training, or you gonna you have services there, so you're
Yeah,
gonna
it's kind of like the back burner, the services side, because if you go there
mm,
right now, under what's currently available, it says rigging is coming soon because my tools are all work in progress. So right now, it's like the thing I'm most known for, I'm not really offering. So I'm mostly doing, occasional freelance gigs for, like, studio freelance gigs for PSYOP, because I'm just going through their tools, and then just working on this between those.
mhm,
And I think what I was about to say earlier and totally forgot was that this is all fairly low risk, because I don't have to put money into this business
mhm,
aside from buying paying for the yearly LLC tax
mhm,
fee and website hosting, basically. but it's like I can always just do freelance gigs between there. It's just like I now have more time to devote to this, but it's not like I'm taking this huge risk in like starting my business, and like I don't have any employees so far. It's just me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
mostly for characters training software. I've only done a little bit of software so far, mostly rigs and training.
But this is great. I mean, and this is really great advice for everybody, anybody that wants to start his own business. It's like you don't need to go like full steam on your business. You can do this kind of approach, and nowadays, thankfully, with all the technology that we have, I mean, we can just do it, like work a few days, a few hours a day in like freelance or something, or remote, or attend to the studio a few days, and you can finger like some time apart to do your own business. And of course, if the business goes well or grows, you can maybe just release one of the branches and just full attach to one of your incomes or projects. But it's I think it's a very wise way to do the things if you really want to do something that it's your call, or it's your more like a passion. That is always dangerous thing. That do it in a I will say not safe, but also like wise way. I will say more than safe. It's wise. Oh, yeah, this is your okay. This is your characters where you have all the still using the Gumroad backend.
Yep, you just click and it just directs you over to Gumroad. I've thought about exploring some other alternatives. It just makes it more complicated on my end to manage multiple stores and multiple payment options and stuff, especially if I'm like paying royalties to someone that helped me work on one of the characters. Then it's like doing the math of all these different income sources and stuff gets pretty complicated.
Yes, this is something I was researching that back in like maybe a year or 2 years ago, because I wanted to do it was like a tutorial I want to do for M-Gear, and I wanted to use one model from my friend, and I was checking how to do this like share revenue, and there is nothing in place unless that I
It's weird
know.
that
Yeah,
there's no
it's
options.
yeah. Do you know what's the best solution I found? I never did it at the end, but someone's curious. You can hide your product from your page, and it cannot be searchable. And then you share this partners link thing that your someone when it goes through this link, it gets X% of the sale, like
The
referrals.
link or something.
So what I was about to do is use this referral link as the main link. So ensure that all the traffic goes to the link. So ensure that my friend gets the this percentage.
Yeah, I haven't looked too much into that. I think
But
a
it
few
was
people did reach out about that at some point, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't had any major issues with Gumroad. It's a good platform. I did briefly experiment with, like, when I was making the new frigging awesome website.
Mm-hmm.
I initially created it on Shopify, I think, which is a lot more focused on making a store. But it turned out their options for digital distribution were just way far behind what Gumroad was offering. So I ended up just making a Squarespace site and still directing it through Gumroad.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest thing about Gumroad is that the people, the clients that buy your products, you have direct contact to them. You own the contacts, and this is something that not everybody, or I think almost not everybody, I mean nobody give you that. So if you want to make a role like mailing list to some updates in the product, something like that, you always have the contacts up hand, so you can share that with your clients, let's say. And that remembers me the Discord, because I get involved on your new Discord, and it was through one of the mailings that you did on
Yeah.
Gumroad because I'm your client basically. So just
Mhm.
that's something that is very very
It
amazing.
was very useful. Another thing that's really nice about Gumroad that I've unfortunately completely neglected over the years
Mm.
is I didn't realize how much people just went directly to Gumroad to like find stuff. I was just when I started it, I was just using Gumroad basically as an overlay to charge people who visited my website.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, I looked under the where it shows kind of your traffic, and a
Mm-hmm.
decent amount of it was coming from just people finding them through Gumroad. So just recently,
Mm.
I went through and did like a whole SEO Gumroad pass of like adding the right tags and making sure the images all look nice and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and doing experiments with like searching because like Gumroad only lets you add like 5 tags, and they're like official Gumroad tags for like categorization.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're seeing this on the left right here, it lets you sort your Gumroad homepage by tags.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just add in your product description a section that just has a bunch of random words, that shows up in searches.
Oh,
And that so I realized by
thanks for
typing
the
in
tip.
like if I typed in like girl rig on Gumroad, I wouldn't see any of my stuff. But as soon as I added just an arbitrary section at the bottom of the product description that just said tags, ignore this, and just wrote, girl, female, rig, Maya, it would come up in all these searches much better.
Wow, that's I will check it out mine because but the thing is I have I think 3 tutorials but are or 2 tutorials and one like how it's called like complementary files for the ongoing workshop on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean because uh, I think I'm in a super niche, like niche of a niche of a niche. Because it's only I never bother to make any say or anything because I mean the people who goes for these tutorials is people who knows en gear. It's not like a random
Right.
uh, animator or someone who is looking for a
Mm-hmm.
already rig or something, you know. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely it's a good advice there. And talking now that we are here on your products, I'm very curious about your character simulation video training series because
Mm-hmm.
I think this is very unique. And if the people who is interested on cloth simulation and uh, like this technical animation part, it's something that I mean there is not too much out there already now to learn.
Yeah, it's pretty limited. I have been told after making this that there's one that I believe is from Gnomon Workshop that's called Ncloth for Production. I haven't personally watched it, but
Oh.
it sounds like that might go through the process as well.
Mm-hmm.
But there's very few learning resources on just how Ncloth and Nhair or any, Cloth and Hair simulations actually work into
Mm-hmm.
production pipelines. There's like the how to use Ncloth tutorials on like digital
Mm-hmm.
wow, I'm forgetting. It's been so long. They don't even exist anymore. They merged with Pearl site, but digital. Do you remember
A
the
digital
tutorial
tutors that
website?
yeah
Yeah, digital
was it's
tutors. Yeah,
now
yeah.
plural site
Or
I think.
yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I learned a lot of stuff was through
Mm-hmm.
digitaltutors.com, and they had a few like how to make a cape and simulate it. But as far as like creating dedicated cloth rigs and importing them into your animation shots and then blending them over to animation and doing cleanup on them, that's all stuff that people only seem to learn once they get to a studio. Like at Disney, I was brought in as a character TD, but it turned out they mostly brought us in to do cloth and hair simulation on Big Hero 6.
Yeah.
And they had to teach it to us because you just don't learn that stuff anywhere else.
Yeah, especially I mean if they have proprietary systems, there is no way, of course. But yeah, I did a fair amount of cloth and hair simulation when I arrived here in Japan. Uh, and you know, one of the things that I like it the most is the fixing part. I know, I don't
Yeah,
know
me
if you,
too, actually.
I found very like going in the zone and fixing like shot
Mm-hmm.
sculpting basically. I really disliked the hair because it
I
was
have some up
super
here.
difficult to fix hair because all the strand. I mean, it was super difficult. Honestly, it was. But for the cloth that you can kind of uh, brush like with the Maya tools,
Mm-hmm. So I
it's really
so I
cool.
released this tool set called Anim Polish a little while
Mm-hmm.
ago, which is pretty much that. Like whenever you go to a studio that does tech anim,
Mm-hmm.
they basically have to come up with tools that address the same common issues that you encounter, like
Yes.
how do you remove wrinkles if there are too many? How do you stop this section of cloth from jittering too much? How do you get a character's hand to imprint on their cheek when they lean into it? But there weren't really any tools like that available to the public, so I just made my own and put them online. And there's like a sculpting section where you can like just sculpt over time, like just hit like apply pose to pose, and then the next time you make one further along, it'll automatically sort of like key in and out of those over time. And there's just like these two attributes here. It's a pretty simple tool. I've made more elaborate sculpting tools at studios that I haven't bothered to kind of redo that process here. I think this one works well enough. And like wrap tools, if you want to like, you know, wrap a piece of cloth to somebody over a couple frames and stuff like that.
That's really cool. I do have another also an M gear, but I think nobody uses it. But I'm
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't know about that.
If you have time, please check it out. Maybe you can give me some feedback. And one thing, for instance, when you shot a sculpt, one of the things is sometimes the you know, you have this pre-deformation and you have later this post-deformation blend shape thing that you can store based on the some transformation, or you can use the like how they call it, I will call it local transform for a point. So you it has another name, the point space or something, I don't know. So basically when you have your arm or something and you sculpt, you can, for instance, if it's here, you can do a sculpt that fix something.
I know what you mean. Like, and it's almost following the normals.
Yes, it's a normal based thing. Yeah, it's I call a local reference space because this is how it was called in Softimage Eyes when you want to. But it's stuck with
stuff like that at studios. It's been a while though since I've seen something like that.
Well, Maya does have it by default, but it uses another name. It's just I cannot recall it.
Right.
But anyway, the thing is, when you go on areas like here that pinch, it's super hard to support like more than one frame sometimes a fix, especially with fast movements and things like that. It's like you do this super nice, and next frame it's you're corrective even if you fade out a little, because yeah, the normal it's just flipping completely, so it's no way to have a nice reference of this vector.
Mine's just world space and boring.
But it's something like definitely it's worth another. Do you have this included on your tutorials on the cloth simulation, this part?
I made the cloth simulation tutorial, but so I had this up and then I had to take it down for some conflict of interest reasons briefly, and then I put it back up after I had done the tutorial series. So the tutorial series doesn't specifically mention this tool, but you know, if you're watching this and have the tutorial series, this is definitely a friendly add-on to it.
Maybe there's an idea there for a second part of the tutorials, like because
pay me more money to teach you how to use my tools that you also like to buy.
Yeah, I mean, man, that's I mean, it's a lot of work to do the training, and
yeah, it's
sometimes
more
than the
think.
tool. Sometimes.
Yeah, the even just talking to nobody on your when there's nobody around you is so weird to get used to. When you're like talking to the computer and it's for people to hear later, and
it's not screaming, yelling. Yeah, the other thing I'm curious, I don't know, in the class, how is the can you make a little overview for the people, because I'm just curious now. I did watch the trailer when you release it, because I received all your like mailing listing, but I don't remember it. It's of course it's only Ncloth, I guess, because it's the one that comes from Maya.
It's mostly Ncloth. There's a little bit of Nhair, but you know, the process of setting up Nhair in a production is very reliant on like the groom coming in and giving you all these hair curves. So it has a brief overview, but it is mostly Ncloth focused.
But yeah, definitely it's I think it's
the skill sets thanks. the skill set's transferred to different solvers. I mean, it definitely has parts of it where it's like, here's what input attract does, but you know, going from Ncloth to another cloth solver is not hard. It's, you know, it's
No,
it's 60 to 70% very similar.
Did you? I did use Ncloth. I think it's really nice, really stable with intersections and
I've also
multi-layer.
used it.
Huh?
Yeah, I've used Cloth at 2 studios.
And but I found that it's a bit slower, or not a bit. And then I had a chance to try Carbon Cloth. I don't remember the developer name. Sorry. And
Heard of it. I haven't used it personally.
It's really I use it just the test, just to test a little bit. It's really fast. It's amazing. Talking with a friend that is more focused on cloth and hair sim day to day. It told me like he likes each depending of the task he wants to do. So there's no like one like clearly better for all situations. They have ones that it's more fit for certain kind of simulations. I didn't go out of Maya like to check like what's called the
yeah, they have different strengths.
Houdini what's called the Houdini
the Houdini one, I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Yeah. And well, I did try the Marvelous Designer one. That's also really good for what it does. I mean,
as far as I know, isn't it currently impossible to cache out the simulations from within Marvelous Designer because it's all just, you know, GPU based or something, unless it's changed.
Do you saw the?
That's what I was told at some point.
No, it's different. I mean, they're getting better with especially because they didn't have this pipeline integration, Python, things like that. Now I think that they added from few versions, and to be honest, I didn't made that much of simulation in Marvelous, apart of the one that you do for modeling itself, because it simulated the modeling. But if you see the work in how it's called Death, Love and Robots, the Alberto Mielgo short film, the Witness, all that it's been done with Marvelous Designer.
Kind of like Spider-Verse-y, with the girl running around the city, and it's all stylized.
Yes, that one. And I had Diego, that is the Cloth Sim supervisor on the podcast. If you're curious to check that, and they did also the, I think it's called Watch Dogs. I think is the game. It's called it. Well, they have anyway. Yeah, all this is it's simulated on Marvelous Design, and it's amazing. I mean, it's very it pop outs, I think, from other class simulations. But I guess depend of the system. For instance, I don't know how it will work with more cartoon animation. You have to stretch characters or do some kind of like not realistic thing. I don't know how it will go. I think Ncloth will hold better there.
Yeah, that's not something that I've ever seen built into a solver. I've seen studios make, like, at origin on the input meshes or the rest meshes, there's like all the stretch is just inherited on this T-pose rig, and it just stretches in real time per frame the rest mesh to change the size. But it was always some custom stuff that was added on top of it.
I did also a lot with Softimesh with the Cyflex. That was really fast. There is not too much. The detail you get, it's a bit, I will say, stylized. You don't get that many wrinkle details that you can get with Ncloth, but it was really fast. That's something that I think for Cloth Sim it's very important. Iterations that you do, you need to try fine tune until you reach a nice balance. I guess, no?
That's my least favorite part.
Is your favorite part or least?
No, my least favorite part.
How do you handle that? Do you batch stuff or how, or just
like wedging?
Yeah.
Is what every studio I've been to, they have a wedge tool where you can like you can like send off a bunch of simulations in a row, and it'll show like this is with density at 0.2, this is with density at 0.4. I don't know if I'm just too impatient for that. I normally just change stuff and play a couple of frames and see what it looks like, and then just keep trying. Maybe that's why it's my least favorite part, but that's kind of generally what I've done.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I think I was more like you, trying a bunch of fine-tuning things where I get something quickly, like playing just a few frames, and then when in I think it's like I like to do that at the beginning, and then if I have these tools available in the farm, just pull like 10 different sets and send it and do another stuff.
Those settings, especially at least in Ncloth, the settings are so finicky. like when I was recording that tutorial series, I had to re-record the big main section of like, you know, adjusting your settings to make it look good, because the first time it went like, you change one setting wrong, everything just spirals out of control. And it's really useful that you can just bring in those default Ncloth settings with different percentages. Like, I spent all this time nitpicking it, and I was like, why does this not look good? Why is it moving too much? And then I got like 99% of the way there by just doing a 50-50 blend of silk and burlap or something. So it is pretty useful. You could just kind of wipe your slate clean with those stable Ncloth settings they have built in.
Yeah, it's really. I think if you get your you need to get some like experience with the solver, and then it's kind of more easier because you start guessing more and doesn't need to test that wide range. I remember at the beginning it was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, and just testing like huge amount of changes in one different or I mean one by one different settings. Then that's something that yeah, like it's at least for me I found very dangerous when you change different settings at the same time, because it's hard to see what's going on, unless at the beginning when you don't know the solver itself. So yeah, that's and what is your favorite part on the Colosseum, like the shot sculpting, like you said?
Yeah, I you know, depending on who you talk to, they all jump to the cleanup phase at different points in the process. Some people are very sim heavy. Other people, like me, tend to be a lot more sculpt heavy. I would say I probably jump to the sculpting side earlier than I should most of the time. I just feel more comfortable in that zone because you're not relying on, you know, it's almost like physics is a dog on a leash and you're trying to like guide it, but you don't have complete control over it. It's its own thing. But shot sculpting, it's like, I need this thing to be here, I'm just gonna put it there. And since I came from an animation background, not a technical background, I probably will always align myself more with like visual UIs and just, you know, I mean, it is animating, like tech anim is animating. You're just doing it on a deeper level than someone would with a regular control rig on a character. And I really enjoy the process of making tech anim tools. I just in general with like I'm not a huge programmer. I've never really ventured outside of Python and Mel, but except for maybe a tiny bit with some game stuff that I've experimented with. But I really enjoy automating things. It feels very satisfying when something is like, I'm clicking this so many times, and then you just make it work for you. And it's been a really fun problem-solving process to make tech anim tools for this Atom Polish tool set, which I wanted students to be able to use, which means, again, no plugins. And almost every studio I've been at, the tech anim tools rely a lot on plugins because Maya doesn't have a lot of this stuff built in. There's this one tool that I called Subdue in Atom Polish, which is based on solving the idea of how do you remove noise or high frequency jitters from geometry or cloth moving around your scene. And the way big studios solve this is they write a plugin that's actively calculating, you know, in the background of your scene, how do we, you know, invert these jitters and stuff like that. And eventually, a couple of years ago, you know, I was talking to some friends and we realized we could just make this we can just have it like bake this stuff up front and then just turn it into like a real-time blend shape. So the way Subdue works is, if I can remember exactly, it basically keys every single vertex of the mesh on every single frame, and then runs graph editor animation cleanup tools to simplify the curves. And then it bakes all of those verts back down in a geometry cache, and now it's just a blend shape where all the verts are moving like half as much or whatever.
I see. I visualize that. Wow, but I mean, it's super brute force, but obviously it will work
it's like sloppy, but it works.
Yeah, it will work like, and you have all the curves tools to
takes a while to run too.
I can imagine. I mean, if you have like a very dense geometry that it's gonna have toll. Oh yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do with real-time blend shapes that are and I don't take credit for a lot of this stuff, like we pick up tips and tricks here, but there was this one tip I was given once. I can share the screen real quick just because I think this is a really useful, super simple tip where one of the most common things you can do with tech anim tools at any studio is offset the mesh along the normals and paint that in and out. I have one in here called Grow Shrink. Where did my sphere just go? It hit it. Why does it keep hiding that? Whatever. So basically, I selected verts and it auto painted the map for us. But in general, it just selected some verts and they're growing along the normals. But the way that works is because if you just do a duplicate special with, oh God, it's been so long since I've done this. So duplicate input connections, basically meaning if you did this on a skin mesh, it would be the exact same thing. It would share all the connections and it's moving along. So if you do a blend shape from the new one to the old one, it's going to be a one-to-one, meaning any changes you make to this duplicate are going to pipe over in the blend shape. And there's this, I don't even know what it's for, to be honest. I'm sure it's a modeling thing or something. If you go under Edit Mesh, there's this node called Transform that you can drop down, which seems to be kind of a node version of, manipulating the position of verts. And it has, I think it's the local translate, where it's basically just a normal offset. And I had no idea this existed in Maya. So
just learning
as soon as I didn't, someone pointed this out to me. I'm just sharing it along. But yeah, if you just do duplicate input connections and then throw that on there, or even like an average vertices, you can then turn it into a deformer by just blend shaping it back. So that's what Grow Shrink and Iron are doing. It's just duplicating with input connections and putting either transform or move or average verts on it. And it has quite a few average verts. It's brute force, super brute force. These are all kind of just like fun, how can we do this without plugins sort of problem solving, which gets the job done. And I enjoy making them.
I think at the end of the day, that's the goal. It's to get the job done. If it does it, I mean, that's super cool. Thanks for sharing. I'm gonna check it out, that one and your tool, obviously. I was about to say, one thing I do sometimes is play also with the delta mesh.
Delta mesh is very useful. I like it as well.
To sculpt. So I apply it, I just brush up weights or something, some parameters there, and then fake it out. And it also helps a lot to when you have this kind of like weird positions that you smooth out the stuff. And
I like using it on cloth simulations a lot because it kind of just acts as a remove some wrinkles slider after you simulate, as long as you apply it in T-pose.
Yes, exactly. I think maybe in 2020 it doesn't need to apply in T-pose anymore.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Or maybe I'm just...
Yeah, you would think it would be able to just know what the undeformed.
Yeah, exactly. I think, or maybe it's I'm making up this. I don't know. I don't know.
It's still probably useful to apply it in a non-default pose though, so you can like steal what it looked like
Yeah,
in a specific pose or something.
Yeah, you can cheat out that also. That's cool. It's
I don't know if I've ever used it that way, but
yeah, I have tried also like to do, but I didn't succeed to get it. But the idea, the concept, and I'm sharing with you, maybe you get better results or you find better solution. Then it's these plane shapes that I was talking, like it's hard to hold. So I used it. I have tried to use the delta mesh as a just without recovering the delta, so it's just a Laplacian smooth, so it gets all shrinked. So when you bend, obviously it's like a super clean, smooth area, and add there the plane shapes. So basically the delta mesh, it's kind of the base of the plane shape in this local or normal space position. So it kind of hold, but still there is some problems. I mean, it works partially, but when you start moving everything,
Right.
because it works in word space, some areas, and it breaks.
Yeah, it's not something I've really experimented with.
But that will be really cool. Or to do like kind of like a custom plane shape node that applies normals not based on the real position, but in a pre-calculated Laplacian. So, and then recover the original pose with one like baked plane shape. So when you create new plane shapes, it's not calculated on the wrinkle part, but it's calculated in a underlying Laplacian space that is gonna be very smooth.
Interesting.
Yeah, from time to time I just find I think I try a couple of times to solve this with the default Maya tools out of the box, but to be honest, I don't remember exactly, but I always hit like this kind of wall where it works. Oh, look, it works here, and then I moved all. It's all broken. It's not like stable enough, and that's
I normally just stick to world space just so it can be predictable.
Yes, I mean you have, but if you can make it work in a local, it can have these kind of advantages.
The precursor to some of the tools I made later on, back when I was at SciUp, I made this tool called XCon for extra controls, where you would it was basically just creating a cluster and doing a apparent inverse matrix thing on it, and then getting it to follow along with a custom control that you picked. Just so you could like say make an extra control that follows when the elbow bends or something, but it's very very primitive. I do have a ride along soft mod called Sticky Mod nowadays that I use instead.
Yes, I use the same for extra things like that. The it was back in the day, like in soft image times, we did one joke. It was a joke tool, but I found some useful uses for that one. That it's the ultimate control, and basically run a script and it put one control per vertex.
Oh, wow, that's a lot of controls.
It was like a joke, like like for the animators. Hey, I did this. You have absolute control everything. Super easy. Just translate. You don't need even to care because at 1 point, so the rotation or scale doesn't affect the point, only the position. And then I gave the ring, and it was not. It was like the fonts with the camera was these small Nokia things that, but I should have recorded the face of the animator when they show it. It was like hilarious. Obviously, it was a joke, no. That's ultimate control. Anyway, so and I want just to maybe for wrap, like talk a little bit about the Discord community that you started. I mean, it's amazing. There is a lot of, I mean, if the people doesn't know yet, there is like a lot of people in a very short amount of time. I think maybe 600, 800 people. It's already there, mainly focused around animation and rigging, I will say.
Yeah, so I've been part of a couple other online communities for both animation and other stuff. You and I are both in like a small Slack channel where we talk about different rigging stuff, but I didn't know of a big community Well, I guess the way I'll phrase it is that I was looking for a way to move my community base away from like Facebook pages and Facebook groups, because personally I just find so much just spam and useless content in some of these, you know, Maya or animation related Facebook groups. Very uncurated, very uncategorized.
Yes.
And a lot of it is, you know, we tune out because it's like we don't want to just see a stream of people in their first week of animation asking, you know, why is this super small thing working? We want to be able to go to a place and be like, okay, this is where, you know, we can talk real deep rigging stuff. This is the section we can go to talk about, you know, what animated movies we like, or here's where you go to ask for critiques. And so I ended up creating a Discord community just under the studio name. It's just called Frigging Awesome Studios. If you just go to friggingawesome.com, there's a button right at the top, or if you're on mobile, in the side tab called Chat on Discord, and you can just join it.
I will add the link also in the video description.
Okay. Yeah, the Discord links for invites are weird, but if you copy the one on that Chat on Discord button from the website,
okay, I will point to the website.
One.
Okay.
But yeah, it's going really well because I was able to send out an invite link to everyone who's ever interacted with my store basically over the past, oh God, how many years have I been doing this? I don't think it's 10 years yet. I launched it in 2014, so, you know, 6 or 7 years. But, you know, anyone who's ever bought something from me or downloaded something from me, I was able to say, here's a Discord, and it got to like 600 or 700 members in the first day, which is crazy. And right now it's like 800 or something, but it's not that crazy to follow so far. There's a decent amount of people that are active. There's sections for asking for critiques on your work, for like animation rigging or whatever else. And then there's sections for saying, you know, how do I solve this rigging issue that I had? But because those are separate, you can also just, you know, chat about, you know, whatever other rigging topics you want without having the stream filled with lots of other kind of spammy posts. So I think it's well curated so far as there isn't like an overwhelming flow of data if you only want to look at like one specific section. But the way I'd pitch it is just say it's kind of like an online hub for the animation community, you know, to just talk about industry stuff, or just, you know, make connections with people, play video games together, or whatever other stuff you want. Just kind of a place for animation community to come together online.
I have to say it's really well organized. Like when I register, like all the like instructions, explanation, just set this name or set this, or just choose which are your main specialties, and all the little steps that you provide. It's very easy to understand, and I think I spent like maybe 10 minutes or less, and I understood perfectly how was said. And I was very surprised because the moderators are super efficient. I just register and I already had my almost like immediately the categorization. Wow, I was like expecting like it takes forever. I was in another Discord that I asked for something, and because I want to post something in another channel, and you need to ask for permission. They allow you to have the rights to post there, and I wait for 3-4 weeks and then I quit. Like,
that's annoying.
After asking a couple of times more. So, but yeah, here was like, wow, impressively fast and efficient. And just for wrap up, what it's the future looking for? Looking on how you say that? Oh, terrible English. It's looking
like, I guess.
Yeah, looking like. Thank you.
But it's so good. Yeah, but the goal for the near future is to get the new Kayla rig done. This is Kayla 2 over here. You can see lots of model improvements, addressing stuff people have complained about over the years, like the severe angle of her eyes and how you have to like basically rotate at an angle. So her eyes are not quite as awkward to use now. I haven't done the face rig yet, but this is what the model is looking like. She's going to have like a whole bunch of different outfits in here, like there's a dress and sweater, stuff like that. Whoops. And she's going to have some cool rig improvements. for the most part, it's a streamlined version of everything you've used on the Bonnie 2 rig if you've used that. But it should be a real-time rig. It's going to be a lot quicker, a lot more stable, hopefully fewer crashes. And there's some cool new features like on the original Kayla, there was an age slider. Let me go back to that. The original Kayla had this age slider, which people liked a lot, where you can change her from age 6 to age 18. And it's not really doing anything complicated. It's just scaling some rig groups under the hood. But nowadays, because of like the pickers I've been using, there's a lot more flexibility with being able to combine different customization options, like, you know, swap this texture out, make the arms this size. So there will be a nice UI with like different options, but there's also, even if you're just not using the picker, there's a whole bunch of customization options to basically make her look however you want. You can like scale the arms or make them thicker. So I kind of just built the rig with enough nulls connected into like global scale and all that to make sure everything is customizable, even down to like finger width and height and weird stuff like clavicle thickness. And there's just a proxy rig on here right now. That's why it looks all segmented. So in theory, she's going to be extremely customizable to look like totally different humans. There's like spine thickness and so ideally she's going to be a huge upgrade. She is a complete from the ground new character, even though she, you know, looks like Kayla. So I am charging separate for her, but I'm planning to have a pretty significant discount for anyone who's bought Kayla 1 already. Like, as much as I'd like to, you know, just say here's a free upgrade, like the amount of time I've spent on this is already like 10 times as long as I spent on Kayla 1. So it's like I wouldn't be able to make it if I wasn't planning on, you know, rolling it into my business model.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's going to be a good value, especially with the discount for existing owners. And once she's done, that means I can start churning out a bunch of characters. I'm not ready to announce which characters those are, but I have a few in the works. One of them's about to go into modeling, so that'll be ready as soon as Kayla 2's done. And there's some other things I'm dabbling with. I don't know if I'll ever put my auto rig system online. I mean, it's going to be so long before it's even, you know, ready for the public to even make a biped rig with it. So its primary goal is just, you know, for me. But I, you know, one day I might put it out in like at least like a beta form, and, you know, just let people get their hands on it and give me feedback. But not sure. I've also dabbled in creating an Ncloth and Nhair pipeline tool to basically create very quickly cloth and hair rigs in Maya and populate them into shots and export and import them within shots. I'm not sure if I'm going to go through with that, because just based on hearsay, I feel like the industry's leaning away from Maya for cloth and hair simulation, but I'll keep an ear out and kind of see. Like, I know a lot of people are liking Vellum, and
I think there is I mean a lot, like like Ncloth, I think it's only for Maya, and Carbon, you have it for Houdini, but also they did now for Maya. I mean, I don't think it's going away. It's just like there is more options now, but definitely if you do this pipeline that helps process, that it's a big helpful tool to have it on Maya. Absolutely, I think it's absolutely a good idea.
We'll see. I made a UI for it just to like think it out, but we'll see. But yeah, making a bunch of rigs over the next year is the first goal here.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for your time and explaining all.
Thanks for having me.
That's a wonderful talk. Thank you.